Hi, welcome all. This is a 15 minutes presentation of EEP 402, Educational Psychology. I am Calvin Apex.
I'm Emmanuel Wenge, doing a presentation on psychology of greed. Right, basically the psychology of greed, it covers various topics, meaning the topic is very huge. But basically we will see some of the specific things that affects the life of the people, affects the life of the human being. What psychology of greed influences the lives of the people. Many times people look for wealth, they look for power, they look for authority. In order to satisfy themselves, they practice what we call psychology of greed. Greed is taken from the psychology of greed comprises of two main words. The first word is psychology and the second word is greed. When we look closely at psychology, it is to do with the mental capacity of the human being, the mental power, how people think, how the thinking capacity of a normal human being drives him or her to do things. Greed is a feeling that is within a human being. Mostly it comes with the word satisfy. People want to satisfy themselves in order to claim a wealth, claim power, and other sorts of earthly things that will make people to do things.
Psychology of greed is the mother of all types of corruption. Whether you face it in the government office or private office, while traveling by train, paying your taxes in a government hospital, on a road while traveling, or reading newspapers, as we're doing these days with no end in sight. However, it must be clearly understood that the psychology of greed is an unacceptable human fault present in most of us to a certain degree. In some cases, it is just the ordinary natural psychology of greed, while in others it is insistible. Alright. Greed leads to corruption, which is the misuse of public power or entrust power, maybe by heritage, education, marriage, election, appointment, or whatever else for private gain. This covers not only the politician and the public servant, but it also the notary public, which includes the team leader at the workplace, the administrator, or admission officer of a private school or either an hospital. The corruption behavior would include bribery, fraud, stealing the public resources, partially favoritism, seizure of public assets to use it as a private thing by an individual. When most people picture the psychology of greed, they imagine a vault overflowing with cash or, other of priceless treasure. But the psychology of greed extends for beyond financial wealth. Someone might be greedy, for instance, or for attention, constantly seeking validation on social media. Others might be greedy for power, seeking control over a situation or people. Some crave for love and intimacy, not because they value connection, but because they feel a void they desperately want to fill, in their personal desire. This form of greed is suitable but passive.
In the modern era, greed has been glamorized, particularly in capitalized societies where success is frequently measured by material wealth and financial achievement. Within the country Papua New Guinea, we have seen that the psychology of greed has been heavily practiced by the politicians. Politicians are thinking beyond the human societies, which they want to gain more from the people, and they want to manipulate the power. People choose the politician, but in the other way, politicians have the power and manipulate the people, making decisions to satisfy themselves. This is where psychology of greed comes in. Now, there are several psychological and sociological factors that contribute to the development of greed. Why do people have this sense of greed within themselves? There are several factors. The first one is the biological drive. Evolutionary psychology suggests humans have an inherent drive to accumulate resources ensure for their survival. While adaptive in time of scarcity, this drive can lead to greed in modern contexts where resources are more abundant. Once essential for survival, the instinct to hoard resources can manifest as greed in a world where accumulation often extends far beyond necessity. In line with the biological drive, there is economical crisis in the government today. Looking at the distribution of funds, the government is holding back more of the funds in regards to supplying it to the people. Now, looking down at the community level, the community see the resources as scarce. So if they share the resources, little resources they have within themselves, a family could go without food, which makes them to practice what they have, they hold it back with themselves. This makes the psychology of greed, makes it come to play within a family, you see in a society and a community and a country as a whole. The second factor that contributes to the development of psychology of greed is the social comparison. The desire to keep up with or suppress others can fuel greed. When individuals compare themselves to their peers, they may feel compelled to amass more wealth to achieve a self of superiority or status. Social media exhibits this by constantly showcasing others' successes and possessions, creating a perpetual cycle of comparison and competition within two people. Looking at the second factor, at Papua New Guinea, the context in Papua New Guinea, we live together, we survive together, we eat together, we share things together. We are social human beings. We talk to each other in a way that we share things together. All right. Within a community level, when someone has more things, it challenges the other person. And the other person sees his friend having more than what he has, he or she also tries to get more than enough from the other person. And you will see there is a comparison between the society. If a person has 2 cars, the other person actually buys 3 cars, making himself, comparing himself higher than the other, and that's where the greed comes in and it separates the community.
The third factor, or the psychological and sociological factors that contribute towards the development of the psychology of greed, is the fear of scarcity. A fear of scarcity is a fear of not having enough, can also lead to the psychology of greedy behavior. Whether rational or irrational, these fears drives individuals to board or hoard wealth as a form of security. Right. Economic instability, personal financial experience, or cultural narratives about scarcity and can all contribute to this fear, prompting individuals to accumulate more than they need in life. Number 4 is cultural influence. In societies where material possession and financial achievements often measure success and self-worth, individuals may develop greedy tendencies as they strive to meet those cultural expectations. Capitalist societies in particular tend to valorize wealth accumulation and equate financial success with personal worth and social status. The corruption behavior would include bribery, fraud, stealing the public resources, partially favoritism, seizure of public assets to use it.
When the politicians have the wealth, when they have the money, they influence the life of the people. You know, some of the decisions made by the community, they made the decision in order to benefit themselves. Which rather, the politicians, when they have money, they override the decisions made by the community, meaning they manipulate them with money, wealth and other form of goods and services, and they make decisions which is outside, totally outside of what the community is thinking or what the community will benefit from the decisions that they make. And that is clearly greed of psychology that comes in and influences lies with the leader with more power, more money and wealth. Alright, in the school settings, we can see clearly how psychology of greed involves. Most of the teachers are biased, we can say biased. They are one-sided. All right. Those are the things that we do to the students, and it causes the other students to feel down. It causes other students to not participate within the classroom. The two classical example has been given by Calvin, and the third one is that, teachers, the students need a tap on the shoulders, right? The students are within the classroom settings. If they give a correct answer, they don't need money, they don't need anything from the teachers, but they need a tap on the shoulder, appraising them that they have given the right answer. Looking at the teachers, they are biased. If the students they hate gives the right answers, they tend to forget and neglect reinforcing the students to just a tap on the shoulder. So the students should feel good about themselves. They should feel good about the answers that they give, which will boost their learning in the classroom. So some of our teachers are biased within the classroom and also outside of the classroom.
All right, adding on to what Emmanuel have just said, in Angry Power doesn't just corrupt, or power doesn't just causes people to be corrupted or it causes corruption. But on the other hand, the angry power also creates an anger in which people want to gain more, even though they have in possession of those valuable things in life that you can mention. They still have angry, in which they do want to achieve a lot more than what they have or in possession of. Let me take you back to the classroom setting, all right, to show the psychology of greed that really happens in the classroom setting. All right, for instance, if you want to see how the psychology of greed is connecting from the outside setting into the classroom setting, I'll give you an example. For example, a teacher might be teaching in the classroom with certain, and then he has some rules, the classroom rules in which students must follow. All right. Sometimes, that teacher, has students who they belong, or they have connection with him, or maybe his tribe member, or his clan members, or his friends, or his relatives. They may be in the classroom, and then the teacher, when it comes to the discipline, though they broke the classroom settings, the classroom law. Sometimes teachers, they don't correct those mistakes and discipline them. They tend to forget. They just see it as normal, another thing, and then they just let it go. This is one of the things that causes disciplines in more urban schools. The second example would be a teacher marking a test paper, for instance, and then he might mark the paper and then scroll down the names. Sometimes the teachers tend to go for those students where they know probably they may be related to them. So during the marking process, he or she uses the discretion to give the marks that he wishes to give to that student. He may be related to that student, maybe a family member, or maybe someone who is close to him. So this is a classic example of psychology of greed. We tend to forget the work that we will be doing, and then we try to do something that pleases our emotional or cognitive or personal satisfaction, or whatever it is.
To conclude, psychology of greed starts from the highest level down to the classroom settings, towards the community, and everywhere that where you see people live, there is psychology of greed involved, right? When people tend to want to satisfy their own needs, psychology of greed involves. When people try to have more things to their side, there is psychology of greed involved. So within the family setting, within the community, to the highest level of the government, which we have gone through in the presentation, you can see psychology of greed involved. Thank you very much for watching this video about psychology of greed presented by Calvin and myself, Emmanuel. We hope to see you again in the next presentation.